Hello everybody, welcome back to Comedian MTG. I am your host Ian. In today's episode, I take a commander that I had been working on for quite some time. I could never figure out the right build for it, but with the printing of new cards, it's actually gotten pretty fun and pretty competitive, and I get to show off the deck today. While you're on YouTube, if you could hit like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel a lot. And if you really want to go that extra mile, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/comedianmtg. Let's check out the deck. My commander for today's game is Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger, and the deck I'm playing today is a deck I like to call Noxa. This is a turbo ad nauseum / peer into the abyss focused combo deck. So the whole point of the deck is to land one of these cards really early and draw a significant portion of my library, and from there I'll be able to either A, assemble one of my A plus B combos, or B, use cards like Underworld Breach to start storming off. Before I go over some of the combos with Kroxa, let's talk about why it's important for this deck. You see, Kroxa can actually be cast from the command zone infinite times because when it enters the battlefield, unless it's escaped, it sacrifices itself. And because of that discard clause, if my opponents have no cards in their hand, i.e. if Kroxa's been cast infinite times, emptying their hands, it will still do 3 damage to my opponents if they discard nothing. Meaning, when Kroxa is cast infinite times, it does infinite damage to my opponents. How am I getting infinite mana? Well, that's easy. One of the most timeless combos in competitive EDH is the World Gorger Dragon combo. So when World Gorger Dragon's in your graveyard, if you target it with an enchantment like Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, or Necromancy, what will happen is it will come in, exile the enchantment, and that will create a loop. The way this loop works is, World Gorger Dragon will come in, exile the enchantment, and the enchantment, no longer being on World Gorger Dragon, will actually make the World Gorger Dragon be sacrificed. This loop will repeat, and you can actually infinitely flicker all of your permanents on the battlefield. When you infinitely flicker your permanents, you'll be able to tap your lands each and every time because they come in untapped, and therefore you'll be able to generate infinite mana. And as long as you have another target in any graveyard, you are able to end the loop. Therefore, you make infinite mana and are able to cast your commander. The second combo in the deck is with Dualcaster Mage and either Heat Shimmer or Twin Flame. This will create infinite copies of Dualcaster Mage. You see, Twin Flame and Heat Shimmer are already in the deck because they work really well with Dockside Extortionist to generate you a ton of mana. So by just adding Dualcaster Mage, we actually get another combo in the deck with pieces that just work well with our commander and our general game plan. Alright, let's check out today's pod. First up, we have a Tarmac. He's playing Tymna Thrasios. It's a super aggressive Hermit Druid deck that intends to win the game and win the game early. Next up we have Roman, and he's on Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy. After that we have me on Noxa, my turbo ad Naus Kroxa deck. And last but not least is Ronald, and he's playing the Gitrog monster. Alright, let's check out the hand I kept. So I mulliganed down to 6. The important thing when you're mulliganing a deck like this is to realize that your commander doesn't actually accrue card advantage. Kroxa just removes card advantage from my opponents and eventually comes back from the graveyard. But when I'm trying to accelerate out an early ad nauseum or appear into the abyss, I need cards that will allow me to tutor for combo pieces. So a hand like this with 1, early acceleration that will allow me to get an early Naus out, and tutors that will let me go find it, this is a perfect type of hand. In addition, I have creatures in the hand, and for those who know a lot about these turbo ad nauseum decks, sacrificing creatures to get abilities like Culling the Weak or cards like that is really important. So having a creature, acceleration, and tutors is just everything I could really want. Alright, let's get into the game. So because the Tarmac actually mulliganed pretty low, I'm not too afraid of a turn 1 Hermit. He actually just plays a Dork here and passes, which is perfectly fine with me. Now Kinnan executing its game plan perfectly here. Kinnan is a deck that thrives when it can just dump its hand and get all of the mana out very early and play a really early Kinnan to accelerate into either activating its abilities or into even more creatures. So I'm definitely noticing that Kinnan has a very fast start and it is a threat at this table. And for me, I just play my Soul Ring and pass it up. Now Ronald fires off a Duress and actually targets a Tarmac, which we were not expecting because the Tarmac was on the lowest mulligan of anyone at the pod. He takes Tainted Pact here because, as I agreed with, it's probably the best card in his hand. Now Mac deliberates here for a long time because he is on the lowest mulligan and he does not want to be the police at the table, so he decides to just play Tymna here as opposed to removing Kinnan, who we had all agreed was the major threat at the table. Now Kinnan gets to untap here, which does make me nervous because he could easily slam down a Basalt Monolith and have the chance to take the game, but luckily we just see an Arcane Signet out of him. He swings at me for 2 to show me what's what because I'm on the Turbo Naus deck, and that's that. Now, I did have a really good draw for this turn, which you're going to see here for a second. It's a Dark Confidant, which is an awesome card advantage engine, and it also allows me to curve into my Burglar Rat really, really well. Burglar Rat's actually surprisingly good at this deck because it is sacrifice fodder and it actually shreds my opponent's hands, which is awesome when I'm trying to storm off. Now Ronald drops a very early Collector Oof here in hopes of stopping Kinnan, which is interesting because over the next few turns you're actually going to see a couple artifacts out of him, so I'm not sure if that was really the play he should have gone for. Now because Collector Oof resolved, Atarmac was thinking that his opponents were out of interaction, which means he actually casts his Chord of Calling on his main phase to go grab his Hermit Druid, as opposed to waiting to cast it at instant speed. Also, because we all knew about it, it wasn't a surprise. Now, I gotta say, Collector Oof really was impactful on Roman's board, and he really struggles for basically the rest of this game to get back into it. Now I flip a Rain of Filth, which is an awesome card when you're storming off with Ad Naus. And a great draw that I had this turn was a Stitcher Supplier, which fills my graveyard and is actually a combo in my deck with Culling the Weak and Underworld Breach. Now I flip over some cards and then I sack it to my land Phyrexian Tower to generate mana and get more cards into my graveyard. One problematic thing is that I do mill my Underworld Breach, which is unfortunately a card that's extremely hard for me to get back out of my graveyard. And despite me being a proactive deck here, I make the choice to actually Grim Tutor for a Slaughter Pact, because my opponents have made it very clear through the conversation at the table that they have no way of dealing with the Hermit Druid. So unfortunately I have to take a bullet for the table to basically not lose the game here. So because Mac lost his Hermit Druid, he just goes to combat with Tymna, and actually ends up drawing a pretty good card off of the trigger. He draws an Eldritch Evolution, to which he sacrifices his Deathrite Shaman to go grab a Spellseeker. Now the whole point of going for the Spellseeker is he wants to try and find a way to basically get either his Hermit Druid back or something like that. So he grabs a Postmortem Lunge, which is a card that allows Hermit Druid to come out of the graveyard with haste. Now we see once again Roman having a very uneventful turn of just playing a dork and passing. Now we see a bunch of fancy stuff from me here on my upkeep. The summary of it is I'm just paying for the pack trigger, I have my Dark Confidant trigger where I grab a land, and then I'm going to cast my Vampiric Tutor to go grab an Ad Nauseam because I want to be able to try and get that off next turn. Now, Ronald has a Golgari Grave Troll which he dredges for his draw, but it's rather uneventful because he doesn't have Frog out. So because Ronald's actually stuck under his own oof, he has to Cabal Ritual here to get his Gitrog monster out. It actually does get a bit scary when he entombs for a Dakmor Salvage, so that puts us on high alert to know next turn he's probably going to combo off. And here comes win attempt number 2 from Atarmac. He untaps to go into his turn, and he just tries to jam that Postmortem Lunge. Luckily, Roman does have the answer in Flusterstorm, which Mac cannot pay for because he's so tight on mana. So because he has tried to go off twice, he's just now digging for card advantage with Tymna. He plays a Carpet of Flower and just passes the turn. Now, Roman is low on cards and doesn't really do much during his turn, and he just passes it to me. So my opponents are all almost hellbent or at least tapped out, so I know this is my opportunity to try and jam a win. I start things off here with a Rain of Filth because after an Ad Nauseam, Rain of Filth is absolutely amazing at filling me back up. So when I cast this Ad Naus, I am only at 24 life, so it's definitely not going to be one of the bigger Ad Nauses I've resolved. Now it's important to know your list when you're running an Ad Nauseam because you have to know what hits are actually going to be able to take you out of the game. For example, in this deck, I know I'm running both Peer into the Abyss and World Gorger Dragon, so there is a high chance that one of these flips could either hit me for 7 or 6 damage, which would be very, very bad. One thing to also be looking out for is, can this pile actually win me the game? So I'm looking at the tutors, I'm looking at the fast mana, I'm looking at cards that will actually allow me to win. So even though I do have those big hits, I actually do flip again when I'm at 8, because the Demonic Tutor was actually the card I needed to get me over the top. Now because Collector Oof is out, I have to go for a really compact line to try and win this game. So I just Demonic Tutor for a Animate Dead effect, and I Entomb to put the World Gorger Dragon into my graveyard. And now I am able to target it with Dance of the Dead and therefore generate infinite mana. Now it's ironic actually because the only land that doesn't do damage to me is the Forbidden Orchard here. So not only am I making infinite mana, but I actually do have to give an opponent infinite 1/1s. That actually doesn't end up mattering. But to end the loop, I target my Burglar Rat with Dance the Dead, and then with my infinite mana, I recast my commander over and over again, removing their hands and doing infinite damage. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Comedian MTG. Hope you guys have an amazing week. Bye!